Good evening, all. It's Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. City Council meeting. I call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Councilman Becker.
Here.
Councilman Jekyll.
Here.
Councilman Lesko here.
Here.
Councilman Schultz.
Here.
President Johnson.
Here. Item 3, public hearings. Tonight we have none. Item 4, public comment. City Council will receive comments from city residents. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following items for the record when called upon: name, address, subject matter, and contact information. No action will be taken on any public comments unless the item is also elsewhere on the agenda. Those participating by Zoom, if you wish to speak, please hold your virtual hand up. You'll be called upon, you'll have an opportunity. First call for public comment.
President Johnson, I think you did have somebody raising their hand.
On the virtual.
Yes.
John House. John House.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure can. John House, 104 Jefferson Street, Fort Atkinson. Just like to bring up a question about the review of the truck wash. Now, I don't know how many people in your group actually have truck wash experience or who's made the decision. I would like to suggest somewhat of a subcommittee to take a look at those machines to see if they're actually going to do the job. I owned a car wash in Johnson's Creek for 14 years. I also attempted to, with other partners, Ross Davis of Current Electric, and I forgot what Larry's name was, but he worked for Joe Tate. We were going to build a truck wash in town. I spent 3 weeks at a facility watching a truck wash work. Again, I just want to know who's got the experience to make a big decision like this. So if there's any feedback, or can you guys get a hold of me, or I can share my expertise if so wanted. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? First call for public comment.
Hello, Jody Raditz. I live at 1245 Jeanette Street. Good evening to all of you, dear council and city makers. With our unseasonably warm weather, I'm wondering if the compost site couldn't be opened early for the many people who have already begun cleaning up their yards. I believe our town government should work with and for the people. I realize it is unseemingly warm, and normally we have snow at this time, but could we have a flexible schedule? An example maybe being if the temperatures get to 50 degrees, they can open up. Thank you for your consideration.
Second call for public comment. Any further comments? Third and final call for public comment. Public comment is closed. Item 5, the consent agenda. The consent agenda outlined below is hereby presented for action by the city council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one council member. Items not removed may be adopted by one action without debate. Removed items may be taken up either immediately or after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the council president.
I move to approve the consent agenda as listed, items 5A through 5D.
Second.
Any further debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, petitions, requests, and communications. Pre-
We have a presentation tonight relating to the Jefferson County Drug Task Force. So I will ask Detective Sergeant Dan Hobart, thank you, to come up to, and I will give him the mouse and I'll let him drive the presentation. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Normally this runs a little bit longer. I'm going to try and streamline a little bit, so bear with me. My name's Dan Horvatin, Detective Sergeant with Jefferson County. I've been there 23 years. The last 4.5 years I've been running the task force. Prior to that, I was a detective. Prior to that, patrol and the jail and the courthouse. So one of the reasons I've been presenting all around the county to different members of the task force is because a lot of what we do is confidential. And so a lot of people don't really know what we do. And a lot of what we do kind of goes under the radar. So multiple different agencies, Fort Atkinson is one of them that's a member of the task force. We recognize some of the collateral crimes along with drug dealing, transcends jurisdictional boundaries. So our goal obviously is to target dealers and to educate the public in efforts like this about, dangers of drugs. And we do also investigate some of the collateral crimes. So every agency that's part of our task force, their chief of the respective department is member of what's called the steering committee. And so they have oversight of what we do at the task force. And we meet on a quarterly basis. I'm the project director, so on a daily basis, I'm running the task force. There's a lot of different obligations. Fort Atkinson supplies a full-time person, Detective Ryan Wagner, who's here today. He cleaned up a lot less than me, but we all, he actually cleaned up a lot more than normal. So, but we run under the radar. So people don't recognize us. Obviously, as I talked with Councilman Jacob before, I don't normally look like this. You would think I'm like a dirtbag probably normally. So, but on that note, that's why we can do what we do. And we're just not involved in drug investigations, but we are involved in a lot of other investigations because of the unique set of skills we have. So part of generating cases, and I just mentioned this because I think it's important. If you aren't sure about what's going on, everything that is reported to the task force is done confidentially. So if something doesn't look right, something doesn't seem right, feel free to call us and contact us because it might be the piece of the puzzle that we need to go further on in an investigation. So, and so from there, we look at what's really going on, and your piece of the puzzle might be what we need. But also, the task force, we don't target users, we target dealers, right? So, but there's one case, and we'll mention in a minute, where we will target users. But some of the factors that we look at, contrary to popular belief, very rarely are we targeting marijuana users unless it's 10, 20 pounds. And usually that's only because it trickles down to the schools and the kids end up getting them. But weapons involved, how many people, and if there's children involved. So I mentioned some of the things that we are involved in. So it's not just drug investigations, because there's a lot of collateral crimes that go along with drug crimes, like burglaries, human trafficking, child porn, sexual assaults. So we're involved in all of those things. Just to mention addiction, and as people talk about legalization surrounding, cannabis and things like that, understand that development and the brain of our kids doesn't really finish developing until they're between 23 and 25 years old. So the impact on developing kids from drug use is significant. Can't really see on this slide here as much. On here you can. The other thing just to mention about addiction is it takes a significant amount of time for the brain to repair itself after consistent drug use. And that's kind of what this slide is supposed to show. You have a situation on the left of the slide where you have a lot of brain activity, and then 10 days without cocaine, you see that the brain is just starting to kind of get some more activity, and then 100 days, you see more brain activity. And so as far as treatment goes, a lot of, based on that model, we really need to think about having people in inpatient treatment for an extended period of time if we really want them to kick the addiction. Where we will target users is in the case of drug endangered children, because there is a concern, and we've had one, and you'll see one case particularly that we'll highlight, but it's by no means the only case that we've had. But kids have the right, and the statute lists, you know, we protect the kids from controlled substance abuse, dealing, and a lot of times what it is kids end up accidentally ingesting something from the parents. So this particular case in Watertown was a prime example, and it's very recent. An 18-month-old was reported unresponsive. They called 911, taken to the hospital. Originally, they think that this is a seizure. Well, the doctor did everything he could, and he's like, this kid's not responding. So he said, I'm gonna try naloxone or Narcan, just on the outside chance that this is an opiate related thing. And the kid became responsive. So obviously what ended up through the investigation happening was dad relapsed, kid got into the drugs and almost died, right? So what's really aggravating about this circumstance is dad had many opportunities to say, yeah, I relapsed, this could be an opiate thing. And it wasn't until, you know, way later, you know, he didn't come back to the hospital. He went to go and obtain a lawyer afterwards, which, you know, okay, your kid's in the hospital almost dying. I think, you know, you should be more thoughtful on that. But anyway, he was charged with reckless endangerment, but that's just one case. We've seen that a lot. So some of the different drugs, I'm just gonna go through this briefly. We have everything, right, in Jefferson County. This was a kilo from one of our recent cocaine busts. So that's heroin, that's just track marks. Coincidentally, if you don't know, people don't just inject heroin, they inject cocaine and methamphetamine. We're seeing M30s, what's called fake fentanyl pills. That's just an example. This was some methamphetamine from a bust right here in Fort Atkinson that we did over summer. So that's a couple ounces. This, if you ever go into a gas station and wonder what this is, they're sold in a lot of the different gas stations. This is what's called a bubble. It's a meth pipe. So if you ever wonder what that's really for, it's really for smoking meth. Shrooms, LSD. So it's all out here. This is a recent case we'll talk about. Detective Brian Wagner was one of the driving forces behind this. In this particular circumstance, in cooperation with Walworth County, us and the DEA, over 140 kilos of cocaine were seized, over $200,000 worth of cash, and several firearms. The value, depending on how you slice it for the cocaine, wholesale versus user level, was between $2 to $9 million. So, drug deaths, I'm skipping a little bit. We'll talk about some of the major cases. In 2022 in Jefferson County, there were 22 drug deaths. In 23, there's between 16 and 20. So just on marijuana, from out west, we've seen that there's a significant increase of psychosis from heavy marijuana use. This is just one example. And then the other thing we're seeing is all the gummy bears that are infused with cannabis. Kids are getting into them and accidentally overdosing. A great resource to talk about marijuana and some of the issues that people have been facing out west is the NMI.org. And you can look up some of the research about marijuana. One of the big ones that they're seeing is drug driving. That's pretty significant. So I'll skip some of these. This is Perry Street. This was an early search warrant. This guy was a gangbanger. Multiple firearms were recovered in this particular warrant. He was a kilo level cocaine dealer, so by no means was he just a small time person. So those are all the firearms. This is a case in Fort Atkinson, so I'll highlight this one a little bit. So this is a house that we hit 3 times because they continually, got out and continually were selling. So in this particular case, both individuals involved got prison sentences. In one of our warrants, there was this firearm was recovered as well as other drugs. So this was a case in Jefferson, right across from the courthouse, guy selling meth. And so then he's a convicted felon and has firearm and meth and money. So we'll go on to some of the bigger ones. So that's same guy. Skip this one. In this particular case, this is a Lake Mills guy. We had gotten some information of a stash house in Lake Mills. This particular guy, another gangbanger with ties to Chicago. We end up executing a search warrant. Firearms were recovered, and so basically a kilo of meth. Street value $133,000. There's the meth, and then he also had £1.5 pounds of a fentanyl mixture. So street value $140,000 roughly. And this particular guy was by no means a good dude. He's in prison now. He also this was his operation where he was actually manufacturing, like he had a pill press, so he was trying to make the pills. We'll skip this one. This was another one, Lake Mills area, transplant from Madison. Again, Dane County Narcotics Task Force, in cooperation with us, they had buys into this guy. He was suspected in an overdose death, lengthy criminal history. Some of his associates were involved in lots of weapons violations. I was involved in planning the search warrant. I'm part of the SWAT team. And so we executed the warrant in this particular case. Getting convicted felon, firearms, lots of drugs. So some of the pictures. Oh, go back to that. So lots of fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and then again, he's a convicted felon. So I won't talk about this other than to say this guy was involved in a crash. He had a bunch, 106 plus baggies, 108 baggies. Could have killed someone. Thank God he didn't, but he was under the influence operating, and then had, coming back from Milwaukee carrying drugs. So this one, some of you may or may not know about, but this is another case of a Fort Atkinson resident who, thank God, is in jail now, but seemed to be multiple times that we have dealt with this particular guy on North High Street, and he's let out on signature bonds, and signature bonds. This particular warrant that we did, he had 3 ounces of meth. We've had multiple times where we were back at his residence. He just got stopped again after bonding out recently, and he had another 3 ounces of meth. So, so this guy, continually learned or was continually causing problems, and definitely the neighbors were pretty upset. I don't know if they came to express their displeasure here or not, but I know they definitely contacted us multiple times about this particular fellow. This is another case. This is another Lake Mills case. This particular guy, another gangbanger with Chicago ties, he's currently in jail, but This particular guy, what's interesting is, so he had a significant amount of cocaine, just under a pound. But he also kept the cocaine with his firearm, he's a convicted felon, and his money and his ID, all in a safe for us to be, so it was easy for us to get, so. Forward through this, skip this one. So this is another one of the larger ones. So we did a warrant. Detective Wagner was involved in this one as well. We were working on a case involving some cartel related people that span from Whitewater to Fort and then to Watertown. We ended up doing a search warrant at this particular place in Watertown. And these guys, a vehicle tied to the residence had 8.5 kilos of cocaine. So, again, kilo of cocaine goes roughly, depending on, how it's broken down, between $16,000 and $25,000. So, and these guys, one of the guys involved was, again, a convicted felon, came back in the United States illegally. He had been deported previously for drug dealing. And this one, last one again, just mentioned this briefly. This was the earlier seizure that was a joint operation between us, the DEA, and Walworth County Drug Task Force. Can't get into too many details on that, but I've been told by the DEA that it's one of the largest single seizures in the state of Wisconsin. And that load was destined for not just Jefferson County, but a lot of other counties. And so really one of the things that I kind of want to bring home to everybody is that you see all of these people and you think, wow, this is a lot. Maybe you don't, but for us, we do. And there's a perception that, a lot of these guys have ties from other places and they're coming out here because the perception is we don't have a lot of cops. And so they can get away with a lot more. So one other thing just to mention, Detective Wagner, he would be able to talk about all the things that he's learned, but really the value of the task force, not just in the drug work per se, but the skills that the guys learn by going through and actually doing the work, so to speak. They develop a lot of skills that transcends and translates and carries them through their career. And so this was very brief. I recognize it probably sounded like I was running through this really quick. But it's just something I know most people don't know about, especially the people that are supporting the task force and have been continual supporters. So we appreciate the support and it's definitely needed. These are contact information for us. If you want to take down a number, if you have anything that you thought or you think is suspicious and you want to talk to someone about it, feel free to reach out to us, and I appreciate your support. And if you have questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
I've got a question. Very rarely do I see stuff like this in the news. And I guess my belief would be is, the more we talk about like the seizures and the work that you guys are doing, that might deter such activity in the area. Am I just missing those in the news, or is there a reason why they may not get necessarily reported? Or I'll start with those couple questions first.
Sure. Yeah, I
Kind
appreciate
of loaded.
it. So sometimes some things are still actively being investigated. So we can't get into the details about that. And then usually as we're going through those investigations, once it gets to be at a certain point, well, it's kind of old news. And so people are probably, well, why are you telling us about something that happened 6 months ago or something like that? So I think that's part of the reason, because the it's not just, okay, we execute a search warrant, we get X, Y, or Z, or we get a load of things, but there's a lot of work on the back end afterwards that's still being done. So that could compromise anything future that we're doing. So that's why kind of giving a presentation like this might give you a little more perspective than you would otherwise have.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for the question.
When I was young, we had a drug problem back then, and not like we do in today's world. But I remember that the idea was, or what we were told, was because Fort Atkinson was between Chicago and Madison, that was along a line where these things were being transported. Is that still the case?
Yeah, well, and Madison, and Milwaukee as well, because we see a lot of transplants from both Madison, Milwaukee, and then Chicago. And it seemed like for a while anyway, it's also Rockford, but it seems like a lot of the people from Chicago went to Madison and now are kind of coming our way. But yes, that is part of it. And again, the perception is that we don't have a lot of cops out here, and so they can go under the radar. The other thing is people will pay more here for the drugs. So.
Thank you for the presentation, Detective Sergeant. I'm interested in, so you target the dealers, and in your experience, are you seeing more dealers, less dealers? Are we trending in any particular direction as far as quantity?
Well, so I'll tell you, when COVID happened, specifically with cocaine, because cocaine seems to be very plentiful now. When COVID happened and the border was shut down, we saw cocaine prices increase significantly because there was a very short supply. Now, it's everywhere. I think one thing we've been successful in, more so just in our area, and not, I mean, there's a lot of people running under the radar, so I know that, but we've also forced a lot of people, at least out of our area. And so people have to go to other bigger cities for some of that. And I'm not saying, obviously, it's always going to be a problem, I think, and the collateral crimes that go with it. I wish I could say we were being super successful. I think we're changing hearts and minds of some of the people that specifically, had a problem, and making a difference for the kids too, as well.
The city of Fort has a dog. Do you guys also utilize a dog?
Yes, yep. So the county has dogs that we utilize, and we'll utilize Watertown PD as well. So. Yep.
Dan, you talked about a lot of these ones that have been in and out of the jail several times. Does that kind of fall back on like a DA not pressing hard enough charges on some of these individuals, or just a higher up state level problem?
Well, so I was expecting that when they changed the bail amendment to the state constitution, that we would have seen more bail imposed, like cash bail. And for some reason that has not happened, at least in Jefferson County. So I think the DA's office is trying and doing what they can do. And after they do what they can do, and the judge makes a determination. So,
Okay.
But thank you for the question.
And you mentioned schools, and obviously a lot of what you're trying to do is make sure that this stuff doesn't get in the hands of minors. Are you feeling that's still an issue here in Jefferson County, or efforts being successful in keeping them out of schools?
Well, we do routine school like walkthroughs and things like that, so it's helpful. What we see that's been kind of the challenge, at least in the schools, is, if you're not familiar, kind of all of the head shops and the cannabis products that are not Delta 9 THC, but Delta 8 THC, or THC 0, Delta 10. There's no ordinance as of now that restricts that to anybody under the age or over the age of 18. So kids can go in, and we've seen that kids at the high school go into, the gas station, getting like a Delta 8 brownie or something, and then they end up eating it at school or taking it to school, and then having a reaction. And so those are some of the issues that especially in the schools that you're seeing more of, so.
Those products are legal for people 18 and older, but they're not legal for a minor to purchase, correct?
Minors have, yes,
They-
it is.
they
There's no ordinance, at least I don't think Ford has an ordinance for that. But when we were looking for, because that was one of the things that we were trying to pursue, at least make it so that none of the kids can get it. We couldn't find a model ordinance. Now granted, that was a year or so ago, as we were looking, but, I'd be, yeah, if you do have one, cause I didn't think that it was on the books, that, I'd be definitely like to see it so we can work to do that countywide.
Sure, understood.
Are you speaking of the synthetic?
So,
drugs?
so, yeah, so when the Farm Bill came out, like in 2018, that legalized industrial hemp, what happened was, the producers realized, well, if we derive it from hemp, then it's legal. So they can make things very similar to, Delta 9 THC, which is commonly the marijuana that you think of. And so by synthetically making them from the hemp, altering just a little bit, you now make it legal, but there's still, you know, the effects. So like THC 0, for example, or THC 10, you know, is 4 times, they think 4 times as potent as regular marijuana. So it is significant. Delta 8, they say has a more mild effect, but obviously I've never did it personally, so I couldn't speak to that, but that's what we're hearing from other users.
We do have an ordinance that prohibits synthetic cannabinoid products, but whether or not those are specifically included, I can't speak to that. I don't know all the different types.
Okay.
But we do have an ordinance that prohibits the synthetic cannabinoids.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna use a lot of your time here tonight. So I guess we talked about kind of ordinances, other things. What else can the city do to assist in reducing this problem within the city?
I think, you know, an education campaign is great, letting people know that we're out there, and just continued support of you know, your cops and things like that, because yeah, it's difficult getting good people. Not a lot of people want to be, you know, cops anymore. We're seeing that. So I think that's one thing. And yeah.
And my last question, so you've listed some numbers and contact information related to like if anyone recognize, you know, if there might be a problem they recognize or something they want to report. But I guess what would be your top resources for anyone who might be struggling with addiction that they should probably seek if they want to get help?
Jefferson County Human Services, if they're a local resident, definitely is a resource for them. And yeah, I would suggest that treatment, that's one of the pieces of the puzzle I think that is significantly lacking in our area. And I know that talked with a lot of people that, you know, want to get into treatment, and it's just not available. There's not a facility that's local. And, you know, again, that's the challenges with treatment and expense. It's a tough thing, but yeah, I mean, so if that's one thing as a county that we could really try and do, especially is a treatment. And I'm not talking about treatment for dealers. They have drug court now, which is specifically for users, which is a good step. Obviously, a lot of our dealers try and get into drug court because then, you know, they complete the drug court and they, you know, don't have charges. I would specifically say, you know, exclude dealers from that, but drug court's one option, but we need to have some sort of treatment around this area as well.
Those who get involved in that does the court system ever sentence the person not to jail, but to a treatment facility?
Usually that's a result of probation, and they get treatment as a condition of their probation. The challenge is the cost of a treatment facility. So they'll get some sort of outpatient treatment a lot of times, or they're doing AODA counseling or something like that. But I don't believe I don't know for sure that they can actually do that and mandate inpatient treatment. Or they could, but I don't think that people would necessarily have the funds to be able to get into that a lot of times. Because it's expensive for inpatient treatment.
Are you familiar with any of the treatment facilities in southern Wisconsin?
Well, there's Rogers, which is in Oconomowoc. I don't know all the details about them, but there's other like sober living houses that are available, but I can't really tell you specifically about the treatment. But I know specifically some of the sober living houses are good, but there's obviously not enough of them as well. So
Might I suggest you check a place, I think it's in Fond du Lac, called Casa Claire? Are you familiar with that at all?
I've heard of several different treatment facilities. The challenge is obviously for our people to get to Fond du Lac.
The situation there is they take you in and you're kind of in lockdown. Then they graduate to, you might be able to go to the gas station and get a candy bar. Ultimately, they graduate you to, they get you a job, they get you an apartment where you pay rent, pay utilities, and slide yourself back into the real world.
Well, that sounds like a great facility. I presume there's probably limited spots, but that's a model to use for sure. Yep.
It's too bad you can't get people just straight sentenced to that.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir there. For the people that, yeah, exactly. I mean, that is the other challenge is just when they have a good program, there's like waiting lists to get in, and because there's only, so many slots, and that's the other challenge. So for sure, but that's good to know about. I don't know if our human services folks necessarily know about that particular place. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
All
for
right,
coming
thank
in.
you very much.
I'll grab the mouse. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate your continued support.
Thank you.
Does Detective Wagner just working for?
No comments.
Pardon?
No comments. I'm not making comments from the public here. There's no public comments, right?
We move on to your report, right?
Yep.
Moving on, item 8, city manager's report.
Thank you. I have some good news to share with everybody tonight. So first and foremost, I would like to introduce the city's new fire EMS chief, Bruce Peterson. In retrospect, maybe we shouldn't have introduced you to the community at the same meeting as the drug task force, but but I think you understand, you've worked in communities before too. So Chief Peterson's first day was on Monday, and he got to tour our what I'll call our quirky municipal building here and meet some of our team. So we are going to continue those introductions tonight and tomorrow at the city's management team meeting. Chief Peterson, if you could come to the podium and take a moment to tell the council and the public a little bit about yourself and why you're excited to join our
Yeah,
team.
thank you. And that's a hard act to follow, so well, let me just start by saying what an honor it is to be here and be named the fire chief in Fort Atkinson. It's certainly the culmination of my 38 years in public service. And I feel like my whole career has led up to this point to be able to serve the fine men and women of our department. I come from a state south of here, immediately south of here, and really proud of the career I had there. I spent a year in Johnson Creek and loved my time there. I think we really accomplished a lot. And to be honest, Fort wasn't on my radar as taking the job until I saw what the kind of department we had here and the opportunity it presented. In Illinois, I lived through what this department's going through. I started as a volunteer, was quickly hired as a full-time member, and then saw our department transition like Fort did, where we brought a bunch of guys on at once. And we saw the struggles of expanding right away and balancing the full-time staff with part-time staff. So I think I bring a lot of value. I like to say I've seen the movie, and I can help navigate this really critical transitional time that we're in here. So again, thank you. I'm certainly honored to be here, and will work hard to serve the citizens and the members of our department. So
Welcome aboard.
thank you very much.
February 26th was National Government Communicators Day, so I just want to publicly thank Sarah Wayert for her work in communicating the work that we all do. Also, and if you haven't lately, please take a look at the city's Facebook page. It's really full of information. She's been doing a great job. The Public Works and Parks Operations Facility Construction Project continues to proceed as planned. Even the change order that's on tonight's agenda, it was planned. The initial demolition of the small buildings on the property the city purchased from NASCO and the demolition of the Quonset hut are both complete. The concrete foundation for the salt shed has been poured, and the next steps include the demolition of the north shed and salt shed. Council members and the public may start to see more city vehicles fueling up at Quick Trip in the near future. In preparation for the removal of the fuel tanks at the Public Works facility, staff stopped ordering more fuel. So we are now transitioning to transitioning all of our fleet to fueling cards for use at Quick Trip. So during the facility planning process, we did look at the cost of installing new tanks versus using a fuel plan with Quick Trip, and the latter was the most economical option. And although the weather is inspiring folks to clean up their lawns, we have some more work to do before we can open the compost site. So part of the reason, part of it's due to the storm event last summer. There's a lot to do to get that facility ready, but Public Works staff is working on it and plans to have it ready to open that first week of April as planned. 4 of our team members in the Public Works Department attended the Wisconsin Arborist Annual Urban Forestry Conference in Green Bay. The conference serves to train and educate our arborists, as well as review advancements in the industry and learn best practices. These types of training events are one of the ways that we invest in the personal and professional development of our team members, and I'm really pleased that they were able to attend, and I look forward to seeing the implementation of some of those new techniques. I want to congratulate Officer Stephen Riggs, who retired from the Fort Atkinson Police Department last week after 8 years with the department. Prior to his career in law enforcement, Stephen served our country in the United States Navy for over 20 years, retiring with the rank of Lieutenant Commander. So I think he deserves the break he's getting. We continue to proceed with the hiring process for the next Parks and Recreation Director. We hope to have an announcement by the end of the week on that. The remaining 2023 water main work on Rogers Street and the 2024 water main work on Clout Street, Safety Street, and Caswell will begin mid-March. And on Friday, Clerk Everett attended the first of 2 Wisconsin Women in Government seminars in Madison. She was in great company as she shared her experiences and learned from colleagues about leadership in public organizations and organizational culture. Our development team, internal development team, continues to meet with developers interested in the Banker Road property. I've met with 3 groups that I met through the WIDA Developer Municipality Matchmaking event that I attended in February. Deb Reinbold of JCEDC and Thrive ED has also brought several developers to the table, so we're hopeful to see the fruits of those labors very soon. I was fortunate to attend the Wisconsin City County Management Association conference in Elkhart Lake last week. Session topics included debunking TID and TIF myths, unlocking the potential of AI in local government, recruiting local government's next generation, and leadership and mental health. And next week, Matt Cures from UW Extension, and I will be speaking at the Fort Atkinson Chamber of Commerce Legislative Luncheon at Carla's Catering. Our topic will be the need for housing in the region here, as well as the challenges and opportunities that we have locally. And I think there are still tickets available if anybody wants to attend that event. And that is all I have.
Can you switch mics with David? Yours is cutting. Okay, thank you.
Moving on, item 9, unfinished business. Tonight we have none. Item 10, new business. Item A, a review and possible action to the purchase of replacement light poles for Madison Avenue. Mr. Sully? No, he's not here tonight.
But we
Mr.
do have,
Armstrong?
No, I apologize. I'm Nick Armstrong, the city electrician. I am not Andy Selly. And I'm not gonna pretend to be him either. A little background, there's 44 of the decorative green poles along Madison Avenue from Mechanic Street out to right in front of Salmon's. So right by the hardware store, they start there. 2005, they were installed when Madison Avenue was redone. Shortly after, they started to notice that there was some deterioration going on. And it was from the fact that the inside of the poles were never painted, just the exteriors. Over salt, sand, all that goes on, started to deteriorate the poles. They were replaced out further on Madison Avenue, but now we're to the point that we need to do something with them. We have taken down several of them. I'm sure you've noticed the orange cones over some spots along McCoy Park Road. And what those were poles that were deteriorated bad enough that we felt they had to come down because it was going to be a safety issue. So that's actually what we're here tonight for, is to get those other 24 replaced, and we'd like to do it this year. Some aren't as bad as others, but it's kind of one of those where they need to all get done. So we went to put them out for bid. We had some vendors that didn't want to bid them. We had some that did, some that would bid the poles, some that would bid the lights. We went, we'd like to go with Enterprise Lighting because they bid them both for us. City has used Enterprise as a vendor for numerous other projects, and the poles that have been replaced out on the western end of Madison Avenue corridor were all through Enterprise Lighting. So there is a picture. You can see one of the poles that was taken down this last year, the base, how rotted that is. If you look over the prices, you can kind of see some are really expensive, crazy expensive. Like I said, with Enterprise providing both lights and poles, we already have those. We kind of look at it and say it makes more sense for us to stick with Enterprise. It keeps them looking the same throughout. Parts are interchangeable with them, so it just would be a better way for us. Financially wise, 22 of the 44 poles are located within TID 8, or within a half mile of the boundary. So it's basically to Nelson Street is where we stop from TID 8. From Nelson to Mechanic is outside of that TID 8. The funds from TID 8 were identified in the 24 budget to pay for those lights. However, the lights that are located outside that half mile boundary at TID 8 cannot be paid for using TID 8 funds. So the balance of them poles would be paid for using ARPA funds. So it is our recommendation that the city council approve the replacement of lights and poles along Madison Avenue, including the purchase of materials from Enterprise Lighting for the price of $82,702 and the approval of $22,000 for installation, which would include my time. We would hire a crane to come in and take these up, take them down. Just from a safety factor, it makes more sense for us to have a crane in there. City does have bucket trucks, but they're not really rated for that type of work. They're heavy poles, so from that aspect, we would be looking for that extra money for them too. Any questions?
The new poles that you intend to install, aesthetically, are they similar, the same?
Aesthetically, they are very, very close to the same. There might be a slight difference, but as you're driving down the road, you would never notice it.
Are they engineered to a longer lasting with being painted on the inside?
They're all aluminum. The bases are aluminum, poles are aluminum, the cross arms are aluminum. The lights are LED, which would be similar to what's out on Madison Avenue now.
so just for clarification purposes, you're not replacing the green decorative lights, you're replacing them with the aluminum lights that are already,
Right. The green
Oh,
decorative
yeah.
metal poles, the carbon steel poles will be completely gone along Madison Avenue. It will be all aluminum poles all the way out.
similar to the poles.
Similar
There's
to-
a picture in the memo, but similar to
Yeah.
the poles that are in the island on
Right.
Madison.
And that's actually out on the western end of the corridor, Madison Avenue.
Is there a life expectancy of those poles?
Way longer than you and I will be alive, I would imagine.
That works for me.
I couldn't give you an exact year, no. I would say 40 years, 50 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Did you get a sense from from Enterprise, when the work or when we can
When
get the
lead
the
time?
equipment in and,
16 to 18 weeks is what they told me the last I spoke to them.
okay.
That has been a little while. So they really won't give me until I give them a purchase order. They're not going to give me a whole lot, but
Right.
they did tell me 16 to 18 weeks.
I move to approve the replacement of lights and poles along Madison Avenue, including the purchase of materials from Enterprise Lighting for $82,702 and $22,000 for labor and materials associated with the installation.
Second.
Any other debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10B, review and possible action relating to a proposal for a truck wash at the new Public Works and Parks Operation Facility. Mr. Williamson.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. As you'll find in the memo that's in your packet, this is an item proposed for the new facility that we're constructing right now. This item has come up through the entire design process for the last about year and a half. And so when the council awarded the contract to the Public Works for the Public Works and Parks Operations Facility to Gilbank Construction, it was noted early in the process, just a few days before the bid was due, that this was an item specified in the bid packet that it was to be supplied by the owner, an oversight in constructing the bid packet. So rather than try to put out an addendum to that bid, literally a couple of days before the bid is due, we decided to approach it just by change order, knowing that we already had the budget set at $220,000 approximately in the bid packet itself from the architect's bid. We determined that it was just easier to follow up through a change order process. So the truck wash was sourced through Hydrochem Systems Incorporated out of Caledonia, Michigan. It meets all the city specifications along with the architect specs as indicated in the original bid documents. The wash is critical for ensuring vehicles remain clean, neat, and salt-free. We'd like to continue to extend the life of those vehicles. As I know the council is aware, these vehicles are incredibly expensive, and we struggle to keep rotating stock under 20 years. So keeping large vehicles on the road for 20 to 25 years is difficult enough mechanically. To keep the vehicles corrosion free is very important to us. So the budgeted amount for the truck wash again was in the original bid estimate at $220,000 for all the necessary materials and installation. The proposal came back from Gilbank, who is our general contractor, at $170,638. And these funds for the project will come out of the note anticipation note, the series 2024A, borrowing for construction of the new Public Works and Parks Operations Facility. The staff recommends to the council approve the change order for the Public Works Parks Operations construction, the contract for the truck wash in the amount of $170,638.
Does the new truck wash include the ability to do underbody wash?
Yes. Yeah, so there's an undercarriage wash. It's a hoop style wash. It's a drive-through wash system. So essentially it takes just a quick wash, which in terms of a large truck is 20 to 30 minutes is a quick wash. If you just take the wand and wander around the truck and spray it, down to less than 4 minutes a truck. And that includes top of the vehicle, undercarriage, and it's a two-step system so that we also have the ability to hand wash these trucks. So a couple of times a year when we're switching over from season to season, coming out of the winter season with a lot of the hauling of salts, we have a catwalk that is being constructed that the crews will be able to climb the catwalk and spray down the inside of the boxes and make sure that they're cleaned out thoroughly. This truck wash is intended to be used essentially weekly to keep all road debris off the vehicles as often as humanly possible without having to schedule 6 to 10 hours a week of crew time just to wash the trucks.
Well, since none of our equipment is free, taking good care of it's important.
To me, it is. Yes.
I think it's a very good idea to have a truck wash.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Could you explain, the term owner supplied, what did that mean in the original bid?
So that, in the original bid package, there are many items that are owner supplied. Some of those items would be desks, interior furniture, some interior cabinetry, steel racking, pallet racking, store to outfit the storage spaces. Those items are hard to anticipate for the general contractor to install those items in a bid package. So typically those items are all owner supplied, and then the owner contracts with a company to come in and either do the installation or does the installation themselves. So we have many items, all the interior furniture inside the office spaces, the appliances that are going into the warming kitchen, those things are all supplied through us, through the city.
Okay.
Tom, I know this is a big project, but
It is.
I'm guessing you're not anticipating any other. I know there will be other change orders likely, but no other change orders like this, as far as like a facility sort of, piece.
No, I think ultimately the choice to choose or to manage this through the change order process is a bit deceiving. We budgeted for this. This was planned. But again, rather than shorting all of the bidders and having them scramble to put together a bid 2 days or 3 days before the bid was due, we thought that was unfair to the bid, to the whole bid process. So again, referring to it as a change order, this process is a little bit deceiving. It's more and less we're adding this back into the bid.
Sure.
Essentially. Mhm.
Sense. No, I think it's a wise investment. It's nice that it came in, approximately 50,000 under budget still, so that's great. And preventive maintenance is critically important. So I will move to approve the proposal for a truck wash at the new Public Works and Parks operation facility at a cost of $170,638.
Second.
Any further debate?
I just had one more question for you. I assume, I know like the county has one of these in their facility.
Mhm.
Do you tour any other facilities that have them? and
Dodge County, they have one, and also Stoughton has it's a little bit of a different system, but they do have a wash system that they've employed, and with some success.
Okay. And all of them seem to have high praise of their systems.
Yeah, I haven't
No
heard any negative talk, other than it's fast, and some people really like to spend an hour or two cleaning out their truck, but I would prefer 4 minutes.
And that's definitely save, labor intensive down the road.
Yeah.
I apologize if I've missed this, but were there other companies out there that could competitively bid on this, or?
We treated this like as part of the general's contract, so they went out to bid with it and brought back the bid to us for approval. So similar to them hiring the electrician that did the work, to them hiring the plumber that did the work, they put it together as a bid spec package for us.
Okay.
So this is in essence you drive through,
Mhm.
is the drying of the vehicle air dry, hand dry?
It's air dry. Mhm. It's an air dry system. It's not that, this isn't quite up to the specifications of an automated car wash that has the waxing feature and the drip dry, the no spot rinse and all of that. But this system is meant to clean the dirt, rust, and the grime off of the vehicles and from underneath the undercarriage in a fairly rapid fashion. And then we'll park them once they're clean. So the system is actually designed to be driven through and into the facility and parked.
Sounds like what you guys are normally doing, efficient and cost effective at the same time.
We're trying.
Now this can be used for like your unloaders and stuff too,
You
right?
bet. Yeah, it's designed to,
Every piece of
if I
equipment.
remember right, the height of this is set at 15 feet, I believe. So most everything that we own, short of, I think, the jet truck. But I think everything is designed to fit through it and wash and come up underneath the undercarriage.
Perfect.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 10C, review and possible action relating to an alcohol beverage license application for Sunny's Quick Mart LLC. Is ever.
batteries are dying. I apologize for our microphone dancing tonight. So thank you. As mentioned, this is for approval for an alcohol license. So I will reference the Class A alcohol license includes Class A intoxicating liquor. So when the quotations are around the Class and the A, it signifies for intoxicating liquor, and then the Class A fermented malt beverage. So as a reminder, the Class A allows for consumption off premise for the alcoholic beverages. The location we're talking about today is 1220 Janesville Avenue. This has been operated as Sunny's Quick Mart. For about a year prior to that, it was Lions Quick Mart. So a common location throughout the city. The owner, Jay Patel, has been the owner for the past year. He contacted me and stated he is moving out of state. So he was looking to sell the business for Sunny's Quick Mart, which had a lease for the operation at that location. Jatinder Kaur is the spouse. Her husband operates Handy Spot 105, which is on the corner of Main and 3rd Street, which was a formerly Loader BP location. So the applicant that's going to be applying and taking over for the Sunny's Quick Mart also operates another gas station within the city. This was first presented to the licensing committee on February 6th. At that time, there was still a lot of information that I was waiting for the applicants, but I at least wanted to kind of get the process in motion. So the license committee had made a recommendation to send this to council contingent upon the following items that were to be received by me. They had to submit proof of their federal ID, the seller's permit, the lease, and then the letter stating that Mr. Patel would surrender his license contingent upon approval for the applicant. Because as you may or may not be aware, we are at a max quota for the Class A intoxicating liquor license. So for someone to apply for that, there would have to be one available. Should Mr. Patel of Sunny's Quick Mart surrender it, then it would be able for others to apply for it. Last week, I was provided the final piece of the puzzle, which was the letter stating that Mr. Patel would surrender his license contingent on the approval. We did have a successful background check. Again, all documents were received timely. We had no concerns. The alcohol license fee is prorated. So licenses run from July 1st through June 30th every year. So this license, if approved by council tonight, would be effective for tomorrow. The prorated fee would be $200, which would be good through June. They also applied for the cigarette license, and that is $100 a year, and that is not prorated. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. If not, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the application for Sunny's Quick Mart. Sunny's Quick Mart Food Mart for Class A intoxicating liquor, Class A fermented malt beverage, contingent upon payment of monies owed. The only payment of monies that is required right now is the licensing fee, the prorated fee, and then the cigarette license fee.
I'll move to approve the alcohol beverage license application for Sunny's Quick Mart LLC.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, miscellaneous. Tonight we have none. Item 12, claims, appropriations, and contract payments. Review and possible action relating to verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorization of payment.
I move to approve the verified claims as presented.
Second.
This is a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Jekyll,
Aye.
Councilman Lesko here,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz,
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 13, adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.